one of the things that Susanna was talking about was that there's a trend now making shopping malls more about experience than sales, especially as e-commerce is continuing to grow. So I wondered if each of you could give some examples about first of all, whether you think this is true and what you're doing to create these experiences in the environments. And I think this could be a good one for you because your company is working with a lot of retailers and brands in China in a creative capacity. So I wanted to see what you both think of this.
Yeah, first of all, I would say that the first thing to understand about China is that it's several continents. It's huge, totally huge. When you're French, I'm French, I've been working for years for French people and in Europe. But once you arrive in China, you understand that it's immense. So I would say that it's true that these malls are moving into much more experience. And I would say that the first experience is food and beverage, of course. You all know this, but for example, we've been working a lot in the renovation of Super Brown Mall. You know where Super Brown Mall is? It's in Pudong, just facing the Pearl Tower. And this mall is making more than 50% of its business out of food and beverage, which is something that is just impossible in France, for example. Most of the players, I'm talking about the big ones, in Europe are making less than 5% of their business apart from pure retail. 50% of food and beverage in a mall that is 247,000 square meters is really something. So that's the first step. Then afterwards, in the future, we have a lot of projects where actually retail food and beverage, but different food and beverage, with different themes and experience with gym and also the opportunity of people to meet, people to work, and really developing these spaces, becoming really places where you get emotion. And I think that emotion is the real thing that will happen in the future because, all the needs you have of this and that product, water or, I don't know, milk for your children or whatever, is going to be solved and done. There won't be any question because e-commerce is going to do all this. And as this country is moving like 10 times more quickly than we do in our traditional Europe, it's definitely something that is going to happen. Maybe I should talk about different projects that are, I would say, the malls of the future. The Chinese government is developing in the suburbs of the main cities of China, some kind of theme parks in between 100 up to 500 hectares of a mix of, any kind of experience like mixing zoos and houses and casinos and some kind of Hollywood incredible buildings that are just new cities out of the cities on hundreds of hectares, just like providing food experience for the weekend, for example. In China, people can drive 5 hours for the weekend back and forth to feel and experience something new. And that's really something incredible. And it's the initiative of the government. And I find this really incredible.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're really setting up the next speaker after our panel really well, because he's going to be talking about exactly one of these sort of new smart cities that's providing that. So we're going to get a case study of that coming up soon. But Romain, do you want to add anything to this about experiences? And could we have another couple of mics? Maybe we could. We only have one up here for the three of them.
Hi, everybody. Totally agree on the fact that China is massive. I don't know if most of you have been there, but I've been living there. I've been traveling to China for 20 years, living there for 2 years, and my impression of the country has totally changed since I lived there. I'm traveling a lot in China. We have 1,000 stores. You say around 10,000 people now working for us in China. When traveling, I'm always astonished, really surprised about what's happening in the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 cities. We're always talking about Shanghai and Beijing, But what's happening outside is crazy, and that's exactly what we said. It's all this shopping mall offering experience to people who basically did not get that experience before. So you can really see a customer looking for this experience. For us in retail, it's definitely I would say a good news. And e-commerce, we discussed it before. For me, e-commerce is dead. That's what Jacques Ma said 3 years ago. I did not understand that sentence when I read it when I was in France. And now I totally understand that sentence, because for me, the point is how do you exist on a mobile phone? There is around 20 million brands on Tmall in a 10-inch screen. So how do you exist on that? And for me, the reason why we exist as a retailer is because of our stores. And the mobile phone has reconciled this online, offline. I don't remember all the sense at the end of it, but thanks to this, you have touch point. Everything is linked to a mobile phone, and so the experience is, for me, it's real tangible thanks to the stores. So then I don't see the border between e-commerce or whatever. It's another topic, but everything is linked to experience now.
Mm-hmm. And that was brought up in our first session today with Coke. Kurt was saying that a phone is now a sales outlet, and how does someone like Coke handle that? And that's true for fashion brands and luxury brands. It's true for everybody. So, is it more about bringing technology into the stores as opposed to looking at it as, they're buying online or they're buying in a store, but, sort of combining the two? Is that what you're doing, sort of making a more digital experience in the stores?
What we've been doing, for a long time, we've been doing e-commerce. So e-commerce like French way, which was basically doing discount, old stock, and put that online. That's what we understood should be e-commerce. For the last 3 years, we've been doing totally the contrary. So we're offering only the in-season product, doing special makeup for China, for this channel, and trying to reconcile completely a seamless distribution. So the way to do it, it's basically, to be concrete, it's we have around 200 million people coming in our stores. We have around 10 million people in the database. We now have personas. We understand for each of these personas, so cluster, what are their touch points, and for each of these touch points, we will then try to monetize or communicate or engage the customer for each the touch point. Mm-hmm. So that's the way we do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Susanna, do you want to chime in on this topic about creating experiences? And I think this is what your video you want to show is about.
Yeah, exactly.
As well.
I think it's quite important for them. It's only about 2-minute video. I think it's important for the audience to see, because this is how we launch, and I think it's a bit like a dreamland for retail, or all retail, that you have a place for safe experiment. I think, remember this morning, some people talk about safely. So let's have a look. We launched in 2015, so that was like, a few years ago. Okay.
Question. We're talking a lot about how digital is changing the sort of the sales process. Is there anything new happening in fintech and the payment? Is there anything new happening there? Is it still just WePay and Alipay and those platforms? Or are there new platforms coming out, or new technologies that you're thinking about?
I think that's why it's very interesting, because there's always evolving new technology, especially in China. And because now they have so many co-working space for new startups to come in, there are many, many good ideas. I was always talking to people, because people think that, why does China have all this new technology? It's not because it's just China, but I think it's the speed of the evolving is quicker. I'll give you an example. For example, it's rule of thumb, anywhere in the world, from a preconceived of ideas, innovation, because innovation is about iteration. You have something, invent, and then you try out, doesn't work, and then you iterate many iterations. For example, you have 100 iterations become, then only you get the successful end product. So in China, for that 100 iteration occur, probably only take 3 months. But for another country, it probably take 2 years or 1 year. So it becomes for the other country to do the same iteration, it probably take 2 years because of the speed. Then it becomes outdated. And that's why why they say China, has been such a place of innovation, because there are many, the market is big enough, and many startups, and also the environment facilitate them to do this iteration quicker. And that's the reason why the innovation is much quicker. So there are many technology companies coming up quickly, and then can fulfill. But I can see one thing is there are many technology, but it's very important how they connect to the business environment. I think that's the key. You know, no matter how good they are, if they are not being connected to the business environment, they may not be the most viable technology. So the technology has to become a viable business models. And that's where I think business, brands, and everyone are coming into play to connect with the technology companies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we getting anywhere on the video? Okay. Okay. Do we have any questions in the audience here? I want this to be interactive with you as well. Any questions? We've got a great panel here.
Maybe I can't see any question, but maybe I could illustrate this thinking with some examples of projects we're working on, and that will be you will be able to see them in, I would say, September. So first, the question of the payment, it's connected. We all know this. There's no discussion. It's done. As we still in here pay with non-connected Visa cards. Incredible. I mean, once you get into, you arrive in China with your Alipay, you're somebody else. And then in a different, I have two lives, you know, it's incredible. So this is one point. Then think of a space like here. You're all mannequins. You could be mannequins, you know. You're wearing things that are really nice. I really like your jacket, for example. You know, and I arrive here, it's a store in a mall. And then I arrive and I see all these mannequins, not moving really, but I'm really impressed and I find this a nice audience. And then I ask the people or I read something and I say, actually it's a store. And I can move, you know, into, I very much like this jumper maybe, or that thing. And with my phone, which is here, I can, you know, scan the QR code and directly be connected to the e-commerce of this brand. And then I press the thing and I can pay directly. If I'm not connected, I get 20% off. And I'm very pleased. So this could be a store. It could be a party. It could be some people watching the World Cup of football, whatever. And this is the kind of, I can't reveal the whole thing about what is happening in September with a very known European brand. But I'm telling you, these people are totally open. Just open to do anything that is bringing emotion. And I think the role of physical retail, I would say more physical than retail in the future, is just to say that payment, you know, all these things are just solved. The question is, where am I discovering things I've never seen before? And in general, I would say that today, the big difference in between the malls and, I don't know, retail spaces in general, comparing to what is happening in Europe, is that the space dedicated to, I don't know, concerts, events, and all this kind of thing that change all the time, pop-up stores, are immense. People love in China to move and see things. You may consider in between, I don't know, the 8th and the 7th and the 5th and the 6th, that is not very sophisticated, but it's real life. And I must say these people are really moving forward and very, you know, craving with discovering new things, new ideas, new brands, and they're very curious about the Western world, or I would say the whole world in general. And this, for me, is something that we need to focus on. The technology is one thing, but people are not buying technology. They don't need technology. When ages ago we put some aircon in the stores, we didn't want to show the aircon. It was just nice, you know, feel like cool, not, you know, places where it's boiling hot and all this. But we didn't have to show the technique. Still remains the question of what is happening, and you have to be super inventive to really surprise people now.
Okay. Shall we get the video? Success? Yay.
Yeah, hopefully it works.
We live in exponential times. Retail in China is changing faster than ever before. Exploring allows consumers to be part of the debate, to be part of the experiment, and to influence what's going to happen in the future.
One thing that we can do here that we can't do in a lot of places around the world is we can actually figure out what people are doing physically at the same time they're doing something digitally.
IBM provide the back-end analytics for Explorium. They help us identify and understand exactly what people are doing, almost what they're thinking.
So what we do is everyone has a tag on their wrist, so we're able to see how long do people stay in certain areas of the Explorium, kind of making a decision as to what's exciting to them or not. I can actually see what they're looking at online on the Explorium app, and then do they actually go and look at that merchandise or not. So I can do a correlation between the two and decide where they are and what they're looking at.
So the data we collect in real time, and this allows us to understand immediately what's happening, what the customer responses are to brands and their technologies. And we're therefore able to adapt and to iterate our experiments to respond immediately. So this is really about understanding what does the future of retail look like? What do consumers want? How should brands respond accordingly?
The most challenging things is how you get the customer with their kids staying longer and being engaged. So we come with this idea, you let kids try on the shoes and give them a dance with a key, and they will find a lot of happiness, and they're willing to try different shoes. And at the same time, the helper can also work with the parents and bring the product feature, and also have a better communication, understanding what the parents need from the shoes. And we do this for a couple of months, and we realize most of the customers bring very healthy, productive feedback to us. So we thought this is a very good move and good try.
The real reason for experimenting is you de-risk the future. So the question really is what is the fastest way you can get to a real truth experience and put that in front of consumers? The experiment should be pretty invisible as an experience to consumers. They're just really a series of curated experiences for them to deal with or to engage with as they go through the lab.
Any retailer in the world that does any type of experimentation or innovation, they're stuck within the confines of their business model. Whoever I am in the world, I can't test how I interact with others. Here we can because we have very different retailers next to one another. I can do an experiment in one exhibitor and I can see how that impacts the other.
I think by understanding the retail market in an experimental way, by innovating and testing new business models, retailers can become more effective in terms of their future strategies and plans.
I think there's a key takeaway here is one is that de-risk the future, because just now we're talking about the future uncertain. I think no one has the fixed answer. The only win is by experimentation and keep iterating, improving on it. And also just now we come back to what Hubert said about is the technology. Remember, that's just now the video say it has to be invisible to the consumer. And that's the reason why it's so important. Whatever technology company, in inventing new retail, smart technology, has to work hand in hand with the business, with the retailer, because it's very important to see how they apply. Now I think that's still they are all working on their end, and it's important that it has to be a link and connection together. And that's what Explorium 2.0, which is our improved version, which I can talk about it next year if I come back here to about this connecting the dots. And then I know time is running out, but I think this is so very important. It's only 2 minutes. If you don't mind, I've asked Normandy, and we'll just show it to you. Say, okay, that just now was about the front end of the retail. But what other things to help to assist all the product to be produced much quicker? Like just now I mentioned, instead of 9-month cycle, we are not talking about 3-month cycle or less for a product to come out to market. So this is one of the technology about, just now afterwards we see is one of them is a virtual sampling, but we don't have time to go through in detail, but at least we hope that the video works and you can have a look at some of the things that we're doing.
Consumers are changing, and so too are our customers.
Center of Excellence. Sorry, because I did bring this one to show you, but don't have time. We will show you the other one. Center of Excellence. I'm just trying to keep the time.
Yeah, because if we were in China, it would be dinner time. So.
But now we are in Paris. I know you all like having dinner later. Yeah, the Center of Excellence.
When? I'm really butchering these names, aren't I? I'm getting better. Can't get worse, right? We were talking earlier, and just as Hubert is talking about the importance of emotion, for you, you were saying that the keys to success are speed and agility. And with over 1,000 stores and some opening and closing all the time, how do you manage that?
So first, we have 1,000 stores, but actually we're opening around 300, 400 stores per year, and we're closing 200 stores per year. So because we're following where the customers are going. So it's very flexible. I don't know if there are people doing real estate in France here, but definitely it's another word in China. So this agility is coming us to this. The second point, and it's not easy, we have no chance then moving as quick as the customer are moving. I mean, we don't have any other things to do. We have to move as fast as those guys. And so the way we're doing it, it's to use data. Definitely, we're using data. We're a fashion company. We are not a data company. However, we're using data to understand how to move quickly. And that's why I mentioned before that in drafting customer journey, that's a way to be very clear on the customer you want to target by clusters, and therefore you put the effort on the touch point depending on the cluster. That's really key in order to move. I would add a last point that I learned, and I'm becoming really Chinese, even if my language is not as good as your French, is the fact that in China, you have to move. The worst is not to decide. So it's very pragmatic. It's really iteration indeed. So it's sort of 80-20 strategy. I know French people, we hate that because we want everything to be perfect. In China, it's really iteration every time. So that's a way to be agile. You need to move. That's the number one point. Don't raise question, move.
The data was very interesting, and my next question was about that. But let's come back to that. It's good, you set it up well. But let's get this video. We have it? Yay!
The world is changing, and we at Li & Fung are continuously finding innovative ways to adapt to the shifting business landscape. Speed is our top priority. The Li & Fung Digital Center of Excellence is an innovative platform that digitizes the supply chain from raw materials to production and product development is a core part of our solution. Design approvals, which traditionally take weeks, can now happen within days. Fitting stages can be completed in a matter of hours. The key to speed is our collaboration engine, which connects brands, the supply chain, and consumers through a cloud-based platform. With detailed product imaging, designers can easily work on images that highlight fabric, finish, value add, and washes in intricate detail. Our rendering center has world-class equipment and skill sets. The result is a dynamic product development platform with fewer physical samples, faster iterations, and quicker decision-making. We are technology agnostic and offer expertise in different software. We leverage best practices to provide turnkey solutions that can be incorporated into existing merchandising workflows or be used as standalone services. Technology and innovation are changing the way we work at Li & Fung. We, in turn, are transforming the supply chain and creating new standards in how technology, processes, and people work together. We are Li & Fung. We are the supply chain of the future.
I just want to make a comment. It's interesting, just now you see this virtual sampling. A couple of years ago, actually the clients are very resistant to use it, and then also the factories, the suppliers are resistant to use it. But now it's the other way around. They say, you please send us the digital sample, and then they can immediately make it. In fact, this actually improved the interaction between the designers, the customers, and also us and also the supplier, because the response is immediate. Before, you have to make the sample, send to the clients, and the client look at it, ring you, and then you have to remake the sample. So it's very costly, and also, the satisfaction level is not that high. But now it's getting quite good. So I just had the background. So this one you can see there's many different way of doing, using the design, the fabric, and also other stitches as well.
Yeah. So enhancing the whole speed and agility, which Romain was talking about as well.
And the consumer experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. So the consumer experience, we are not just looking at the front end, how you consume, but you're also talking about the brand during the production of goods, and also the designers, the entire experience within the ecosystem. I think that's how the whole thing will be going.
Yeah. Okay. And Hubert, You had a comment.
Yes, in China mainland, we had also to adapt the way, the way we work for our clients. For example, a prototype is done overnight in China. In France, it's sometimes 3 weeks. And it was very difficult when we arrived in China like 8 or 9 years ago. We're a company of 200 people, designers, they're sometimes a bit complicated to make them work. It's creation. And for them to understand that now a project that is supposed to last maybe almost a year has to be done within a few weeks. And actually because things are changing very quickly. In a mall, sometimes we redo in 3 months a whole floor. For example, now the big focus is on spaces dedicated to products for children because of the change of the policy of the children in a family, as you all know, moving from 1 child into 2. And now the business is becoming huge, so everybody is adapting very, very, very quickly. So the projects have to be delivered very quickly because everything is going very quickly. And I would say also that what is incredible is some brands or some malls invest on a location. They can stay there for ages and say, one day, some people will come and the business will work. And at the same time, some people try things, doesn't work, gone. And it's a mix of all this. Very difficult to understand. Different type of people, different types of investments, and also you have Thai people, Thai groups, or Taiwanese, or Japanese, or even Western ones. Not that much, but the different mentalities. And it's very interesting. It's a great mix.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to supplement, because sometimes it's about the needs drive changes as well. I'll give you an example, a real case example. How they're using AI. There's one AI invented by a China company that is like using warehouse, moving very heavy goods around. So instead of now using human to move the goods, you have this AI. They just keep moving the goods. So what happened is one company is using it in the National Day holiday. And in China, National Day holiday, they shut down for 7 days. And also, if you ask people to work, it's 3 times the pay. So what they do is, instead of asking the people shut down the whole factory, they actually employ those AI and been 24 hours a day, moving all these, shifting all these goods around, the warehouse around, and the full warehouse was functional for 7 days. And that one costs lower than using human, and also sometimes human may not even want to come back to work. So I just think that a lot of people say, does AI replace human? But I think not really. I think is AI replacing the jobs that humans don't want to do? Mm-hmm. Because I think in this millennium, I'm not sure about in France, but I'm sure in China, the millenniums would not like to work in warehouse, factories, or even in the service industry. So they are replacing those jobs that the humans don't want. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we can see that's why sometimes it's very fluid. Is it something, the technology moving the culture moving the technology? Or is the two-way change? I think it's two-way influence.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We have about 4 minutes left. Do we have questions? Yes, we have one up here. We can.
Maybe I'll try without the mic. Romain. Thank you, Romain. You talked about O2O. And you talked about customer engagement, and you talked about, of course, finishing your sentence, listening to the customer. And Susanna, that was a very interesting movie. Thank you very much. We waited very long, but that was the why. I'm wondering how you two address the issue, the forthcoming issue of customization of your products for your customers.
So we're doing few experience so far. It's linked to data, partly. So we receive massive data, and I'm sure it's the same for you, Frederick. So we receive massive data. We need to know how to use this data, and based on this data, then you can customize. So we're at the early stage. However, we've been testing some prints on on T-shirt, which is the obvious thing you can do. What we're doing as well, and for me, I think that's one way for garments industry to do personalization. It's not only product. I think one of the topic we're discussing is like, of course we're buying a product, but we're buying everything around. So it's the emotion, so it's packaging, it's service in store. So that's a way to customize your offer, and not just to put your name or your logo or your initial letter on the product. I think that's part of old stage. So what the second initiative we have so far is try to improve everything around the product, and this everything can be personalized, much more easier than production of minimum quantities that you know.
Great question, I wouldn't say. Honest, great question. I would say there's 2 points. 2 points. One is we have tried in the Exporium, we have tried the 80-20 studio. Just like just now you mentioned about 80-20. So sometimes their product, 80% are complete. What we do is we have this race car, Mario race car. So what we do is like every race car is the same. There's no identity. But now kids want identity. If you put the race car in the track, every race car is the same. They cannot even find the car. So what we do is 80% 80-20 studio. We try one experiment is to, if the kids come, what we do is we change the head. We use 3D printing machine to print their head. We use a scanner to scan their head and put it on the car. So there's 20% customized, 80% is standard. And we just increase the price a bit, and it's so popular, you know, because the kids now have their own car, so it's 80-20 studio. So sometimes when you customize a product, you don't need to customize 100%, at 20% of it. And then the other very key important point, I think that's really the crust of it, is you hit the point is like, if you want to a customization of products, it has to talking about the upstream of the supply chain, as exactly what I mentioned earlier. If you don't, then no matter how you do the innovation at the front end, you cannot customize it. If the factory don't change, the fast production line, you are not able to do. So what it is now we are currently in a project working with factory to see how to help them to customize, to reinvent their production line, enabling them to customize and produce fast and also small quantity products to the customer needs. But I would say the revolution has to happen, innovation has to happen at the factory side, which is a lot of people are not paying attention. And I think until Jack Ma just talked about the new retail, everybody look at the new retail. I think you have to wait now. Jack Ma was now looking, Alibaba and Tencent, they all now looking at the supply chain. And then when the revolution happened in the supply, in the factory side, then you have the whole cycle completed. And that's, our company is also obviously working in the forefront in that. Yeah, very good question, thank you.
I would add a very practical, several practical points. We're opening next year a mall, a very big mall in northeast of Shanghai, where we focus on services. And these services are based upon the fact that there are a lot of people with a lot of skills being able to do, for example, some embroideries. You come up with any kind of clothes that you may have bought in the mall, but also your own ones, like old ones you want to change, and some very skilled people can do some embroideries, whatever, you know, with some pearls, you can choose them and make a drawing. These people can do a drawing, and they can really personalize with the proper colors, the proper drawing, and sometimes a great big work done. There's also some painting that people, again, doing some paint on your clothes is something a bit odd, but if it's properly done, it could give a second life to your clothes and be super different. And actually, people are looking for very personalized. It's a huge trend, which is not only Chinese, of personalizing, and it's the same, and it's huge with the denim. The opportunity of having some scratches and all these machines, that blow the jeans and do some work on it, and I think it's super important to be able to bring craftsmanship and skills and creation as services in retail spaces. And actually in this mall we also include the decoration, which is not industrial anymore. It's just people that paint ceilings and walls and even floors. It's absolutely incredible with very different techniques, and it's a fantastic creative mix.
Just at one point, I forget, sorry, I know we're running, but there's something very interesting so far happening in China is the fact that customers are willing to wait. We mentioned you have to be immediate, instant, and etc. But actually, when it's personalized, when there is something additional, they can wait. And what's happening in the garment industry so far is that we have some people who are ready to wait 4 weeks, and you know what 4 weeks means from a supply point of view. 4 weeks to get their product if there is something on top of it. These 4 weeks are key because it can change completely our business model, which is basically a business model where we produce stock based on predictive sales, we put the stock somewhere, and then we clean the stock. That's the way the fashion industry is organized so far. But with this premiumization, we can do the other way, and therefore we can produce on order, so be back to normal in some way. So I believe that can help us a lot. I'm not sure it happens in Europe so far, but really that's a massive change. Like Chinese consumers, since there is an experience, can wait until they get a perfect product, and for us it's key.
Okay. I think we've hit our time limit, but maybe if there's one more burning question, we could sneak in one more. Is there anybody else? Last chance. Otherwise, I think we should end it here. Excellent panel. Thank you very much.